ናትን ሸባል ነገር ልጅ የምታምር ሰው ናትን እሷም ልጅን የምልጅ ተጋቡ ይሉናል የተሰቀለውን ማን ያወርድልናል ናኖ ናኖ ነይ ናኖ ናኖ ነይ ካንቻለኝ ጉዳይ ናኖ ናኖ ነይ ናኖ ነይ ካንቻለኝ ጉዳይ
ממעמקים קראתי אלייך בואי אליי בשובך יחזור שוב האור בעיניי לא גמור לא עוזב המגע בידייך שיבוא ויעיר למשמע כל צחוקך
ננו 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 קנצלי גודאי ננו 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 קנצלי גודאי
ממעמקים קראתי אלייך בואי אליי מול ירח מאיר דרכך שוב אליי נפרסו ונמסו מול מגע של ידייך באוזנייך לוחש שואל מי זה קורא לך הלילה הקשיבי מי שר בקול אלייך אל חלומך מי שם נפשו שתהי מאושרת מי ישים יד ויבנה את ביתך מי ייתן חייו ישימה מתחתייך מי כעפר לרגלייך יחיה מי אוהבך עוד מכל אוהבייך מי מכל רוח רעה יצילך ממעמקים
ננו 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 קנצלי גודאי ננו 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 קנצלי גודאי
ממעמקים קראתי אלייך בואי אליי מול ירח מאיר דרכך שוב אליי נפרסו ונמסו מול מגע של ידייך באוזנייך לוחש שואל מי זה קורא לך הלילה הקשיבי מי שר בקול אלייך אל חלומך מי שם נפשו שתהי מאושרת מי ישים יד ויבנה את ביתך מי ייתן חייו ישימה מתחתייך מי כעפר לרגלייך יחיה מי אוהבך עוד מכל אוהבייך מי מכל רוח רעה יצילך ממעמקים
Please come in and find seats. There are plenty of seats in the middle and on the sides. We're going to get started in just a moment. Please come in and find seats. Please find seats quickly. We'd love to get started as soon as we can, everybody. So if you're milling about looking for seats, just sit in the first one you find. Please find seats. We're about to start. Thank you, Rob.
ואימי מרגיעה
about to begin. Mr. Friedman, if I could ask you to help those guys, just guide them to seats so they're not standing, please. Thank you. Guide everybody who's standing to seats. People, come in and find the seats forward. Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin. Thank you all. Thanks, students, for getting here quickly and on time. I want to thank everybody for your attention, for your participation, your excitement. As a reminder, as we always do before we have speakers, presenters in the auditorium, I remind everybody, proper etiquette. That's sitting up straight, looking forward, active listening, no iPads or anything else in front of us. Let's be fully present. I'm really excited about today's program, Bete, Yisrael to Israel. You've learned a lot about it in your Ivrit classes, and we're excited to begin here this morning. I want to give some thank yous before we introduce the program. Thank yous to those who helped really coordinate that. That would include Ms. Biller-Levy. That would include Geveret Suriel. I also want to thank our student leaders of the Ethiopian Club. That would be Hattie Sasson and Shia Renner. I will also point out, she asked us not to sing for her, but today is Ms. Tsuriel's birthday. Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach. There she is, Ms. Tsuriel. Tomorrow we're all going to be gathering here in the auditorium for Tefillah for Yom Yerushalayim. As you know, a central organizing mission of the Jews of Ethiopia has always been to make their way towards Yerushalayim. Felt it very appropriate the day before Yom Yerushalayim to have this conference. I want to introduce our panelists who are going to be up here in just a moment, our conversation. But before I do so, I also have to thank some additional people who really helped make this possible. You see, Hattie's running the Ethiopia Club with Shia, but her mom, Rebecca Feit, her uncle, Jeremy Feit, and her grandfather, Joseph Feit, are all here today. You'll be hearing from them, and they really have played a central role in taking care of and working with the Ethiopian Jewish community. So a round of applause for the Feit family. Let's get started by introducing our first session here, a conversation about that very exciting, fascinating mission that you learned about, that you saw in the film, that we are just thrilled and honored to have with us today. Three people that we're going to start off with talking to. We're going to start off talking with Commander Donnie Limor, who you know. Commander Limor is the Mossad agent in charge of the operation. He is also well known in Israel for establishing a pre-military mechinah. He is a hero of epic proportions, and we're really excited to have him here today. You're also going to be hearing from two Ethiopian Jews today who were part of that mission as well, as younger children. You're going to hear, again, those of you who are in 10th and 11th grade, you know him from last year when he spoke to us, Rabbi Dr. Sharon Shalom. And you're also going to be introduced today to Roni Fontanish Malkai, an activist in the Ethiopian community in Israel, and we're just really excited to have them here today. So I asked them to come on stage, and we'll begin our conversation. Okay, I have a bunch of questions, but essentially you're going to run the show here. I am just asking questions, and you're going to talk, and you're going to share, and you're going to explain to us what the experience was like. I first feel, though, we should introduce you to the audience. Before we give any sort of presentation, if each of you could just share for a moment like who you are right now, what you're involved in right now. Tell us a little bit about where you live, who your family is. There are microphones over here. You can each take a microphone. Let's start with the commander.
Can we see the audience?
Yeah, fine, we can do that. Can we turn the lights on? They want to see the audience. Can we turn the house lights on, please? Okay, there we go.
Okay.
All right, let's keep the house lights on so they can see the audience. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's start with who are you? Where are you? Let's start with Roni. Roni, you start.
So my name is Roni. I was born in Ethiopia. I came to Israel when I was 3 years old, and this guy brought me to Israel, kind of, the Mossad guy, that all of you came to hear him, to listen to his story. I'm a lawyer, and I'm also an author, an activist. And I'm trying to do some change in Israel, to push my community to do better things, to be successful, and to see the way I see Israel, from my point of view, I can say. And that's it. I will talk more later. And I'm very excited to be here. I just want to say one sentence to Tuli and Merav and everybody who organized this amazing conference. I just want to tell you guys, I don't know if you know, but they worked so hard to make it happen. We talked so many times. It was very, very difficult to make this happen. I was afraid that we'll be stuck in Israel because of the Iranian, but we are here, so everything is okay. And so enjoy this day. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, guilty is charged about Roni and about Rabbi Sharon Shalom. And I'm very proud of it. I was born in the Americas, but South America. And so I'm really very impressed by what I've seen in a very short time since we came here about the school, number of students, and I understand that not all of them are here. I think it's a great, great achievement because we need to survive as a people, and this is a great step. And I understand that in this area, I was told there are other institutes, yeshivot, and so on and so on. So I made my aliyah when I was 16 from Uruguay, if you know where it is in the map. Small country, very good soccer, and twice champions of the world. And I made my aliyah with youth aliyah. My family came 3 years later, and I did my military service. I was an officer in the paratroopers, and then I spent many years working in what's called the Institute. That's a translation from Mossad. And since then, since I retired, I've been very dry. I tried to do what Roni said before, tried to change the attitude of the Israeli society, not only towards Ethiopian Jews, but in general, one to another. And I'm very, very active in the school that I was one of the founders, which is a pre-military academy called the Israeli Academy for Social Leadership. And so for the last 30 years, with over 3,000 graduates, this is what I'm trying to do. So I hope you will have an interesting day.
Mm-hmm.
שלום עליכם, עליכם שולם, ברשות דני לימור, יוסף פייט, פרופסור אפרים אייזיק, רבי טולי, רבי קרול, רוני מלכאי, מירב, רבי מנחם ולדמן, נעים מאוד, and everybody, you are very cute.
And he knows Yiddish, by the way. This guy, he knows Yiddish, for you to know.
My name is Sharon Shalom. I am the head of the International Center for the Study of Ethiopian Jewry at Honor Academic College, and also rabbi in Kedoshi Yisrael community, which was established by Holocaust survivor in Kiryat Gat. And that's it.
That's all. I want to hear stories from each of the three of you, sort of personal stories, but I know that the students in the school are all familiar with the Mivtza Achim and what that was like. I actually want to hear from, before we get to Donnie's story, which I think is, everyone's really excited about, I want to hear from Roni. I also want to hear from you, Rav Sharon. Tell us first, Roni, what do you remember as a child about life in Ethiopia? And do you remember anything about your journey? Tell us about the journey of your family to Israel.
So I'm sorry to disappoint everybody, but I don't remember anything. I was 3 years old, so there is no really memory in this age. And I'm sorry because I know you came to hear Danny and the Mossad stories and how he took the Ethiopian Jews. So he's starting with me, so I'm apologizing for that. But I want to say that my father, he's a Zionist prisoner. He worked with Danny in the refugee camps in Ethiopia. So I will take you a little bit back to the history and talk about 1977. There was a political change in Israel. Menachem Begin came to power, and then everything changed, I think, from my perspective. Also, it changed the way Israel saw the Ethiopian Jews. Until then, I have to say that on the table, simple as that, the Israeli government didn't want to bring Israeli Jews to Israel for a lot of different reasons. But in 1977, like I said, there was a different government. And in 1979, Menachem Begin said the famous sentence, "Bring me my brothers, the Ethiopian Jews." He said that to the Mossad, to the head of the Mossad. And then the head of the Mossad went back from Jerusalem, from the Prime Minister's office to Tel Aviv and gathered the Mossad guys. One of them was Dani Limor. And then they started to talk about how to bring the Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia to Sudan, and then from Sudan to Israel. And then Dani went to Sudan, and that's the way the journey started. I have a chapter in my book, I'm calling it the rumor that changed my history, our history, because it was a rumor. Somebody told my family that Israel is waiting for us in the refugee camps in Sudan. And that's the way the Ethiopian Jews started to walk to Sudan. And I was on the horse with my grandmother, but we walked like hundreds of miles. My mother carried my brother. He was a few months old. She carried him on her back all the way to Sudan. Think about it. I'm thinking about it now as a mother. I have a 9-year-old daughter. Her name is Tamara. And I'm thinking about it, what my mother did. It sounds like unbelievable. I don't see myself taking my daughter on my back and starting walking to Sudan. This is a crazy, amazing story. It's like going out. Think about Moses, who led the Jewish people from Egypt. It's like the same story in the modern time. So my parents went like a lot, like other thousands of Ethiopian Jews to Sudan. We were there. We were the luckiest one because we were there only a few months, and then we came to Israel, to Athens, by the way. The Israeli government couldn't bring us directly to Israel, so we went to Athens, to Greece, and then we flew to Israel. And like I said, we were the luckiest one because others stayed there for years, and 4,000 people died on the way and also in the refugee camps. And this day today, May 15, it's the Jerusalem Day in Israel, but it's also the memorial day for the Jewish Ethiopian Jews that died on the way in Sudan and the refugee camps. So like I said, I don't really remember the journey myself, but I know the journey to my family, to my parents' eyes, and what they've been through to come to Israel. But we were the luckiest one, like I said, because we will fulfill the dreams of other like parents and great parents.
Incredible. Absolutely great. Rabbi Shalom, you were a couple years older than Roni, if I'm not many years older, but a little older. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience, what yours and your family's experience was like traveling from Ethiopia? What was the process?
Okay, Roni, thank you. Okay, listen, actually, Rabbi, I prepare my speech.
Okay, so you can do what you need to do. You know what? Read me your speech about that part.
Yeah, my wife, she was born in Switzerland. And she made Aliyah to Israel. And one day we go to the one office, and she wrote that she was born in Switzerland. And I wrote which I was in Ethiopia. And the guy asked her, excuse me, why did you really was born in Switzerland? Yes, of course. And why did you decided to move from Switzerland to Israel? And she answered, because I'm Jewish, I'm Zionism. No way, because instead of you, I never left. Switzerland is like paradise. To move Switzerland and make Aliyah to Israel, are you crazy? And at the end, he saw at me and say, I can understand why you moved from Ethiopia. You know, if you make Aliyah from Switzerland, this is go down to, but if from Ethiopia, but someone told me that when my first time I went to visit in Germany, the camp in Holocaust survivor, he told me that I understood immediately that Medinat Israel, he ir miklat. He is a shuttle for Jewish people. But when I decided to visit in Ethiopian, and I saw how Ethiopian Jews left their village, and they running and go and went like, how do you say it in Yiddish? Michigan, like Michigan, running. And I understood that Medinat Israel is not only shuttle, miklat. I understand from Ethiopian Jewry that Israel is the dream. The Chalom is not only shuttle. You know, let me,
I'll let you read, but I'm also going to cut you off and ask Donnie, because people want to hear, so I got to hear Donnie's story too.
Yeah. You know, no.
You're all interesting.
At one my lecture,
you're all interesting.
You know, someone asks how it is that some Jews are black, and you know, my response was humorous once. I told her that we are the most authentic Jewish at all. When the Torah was given on Mount Sinai, we were so enthusiastic that we came to close the mountain, so the fire and smoke dark our skin. And why are the Ashkenazim so light? Because they were all the way in the back. What about Yemen Jewish? They stand behind us. But responding more seriously, I reply with a question: who says that Abraham was blonde and blue-eyed? The question is really far more general. What did Jewish communities really experience during 2,000 years of exile? And I think, and this is what maybe I can share with you, okay, because my consciousness was Jewishness. So the story of Ethiopian Jews is not story between white and black, or between poor and rich. This is story of Zionism or Judaism in kibbutz galuyot, and this is a miracle thing.
I want to ask a question about, first I want to focus on Donnie's experience in Ethiopia and in the Sudan. I actually read this book. I think many kids saw the movie. I read this book. This book is a page turner. I could not stop reading it. It was incredible, the story, to learn about what you did. You were a crazy man, Donnie. Totally nuts.
He's still a crazy man.
Meshuggah, you were a crazy man, and so many things I have questions about. One of them is, if you could just share with us, what was one of the times that you felt that you were most in danger, where you were most worried, where you felt like this is not going to end well? Share with us a little bit about something that you experienced, and tell us what gave you the koach to continue in this mission. I read so many times that your bosses at the Mossad tried to shut down the program because it was too dangerous, and you refused. Tell us what was so scary, what was so frightening about the experience, and what gave you the strength to push on and make sure it was successful.
Okay. I think in Baba Kama, there is a subject, Abid Inesh Dine Lenafshe.
Yes. They're clapping because in Kitat Tet,
about it?
In Kitat Tet, they learned Bava Kama, and they probably just did the sugya of Abid Inesh Dine Lenafshe. Very impressive. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
Anyway,
continue.
for those who don't understand Aramaic, means there comes a time when you have to do what you have to do. Okay, that's a free translation. Mm-hmm. Not exactly the meaning. When you say that sometimes I got instructions to shut down that village that we were using diving resort, you had to do what you had to do, because there was a lack of communication. Because we are speaking about the early 80s, we didn't have whatever you have in your pocket now to communicate, the total communication. So at the end of the day, they had to trust me because they didn't know what were my considerations when I made a decision like this or that. You're talking about heroes and dangerous moments. I never felt a hero, and I don't feel today a hero. Really, I'm not false modesty. You have to do something. You live. You have to have a purpose in your life. I have some experience in talking to young people, because I do it on a regular basis in Israel with my students and other institutions. If you don't have a purpose in life, and being Jewish means that you have, from birth, you have a purpose. You have to do good, you have to do better. So once I had really the privilege and the luck of being at the right place at the right moment. It's not that I heard that they were going to bring the Ethiopian Jews and then I ran. I was there, and it came to me. Now, this is the kind of missions that you can refuse, actually, because it involves some danger. You're going to work in an enemy country, beyond enemy lines, as they say. So you have to understand the risks that you're taking. But not for a moment, not me and not all my team, you know, because we were a team. We were lots of people. Once I met in Ethiopia, before I went to Sudan, I met the Ethiopian Jews where they were living. And I spent Shabbat in a Jewish village, in a Jewish family, and went to the synagogue with them and heard Kriyat Torah. I didn't understand the word because it was in Ge'ez, but there is the atmosphere. I mean, you don't need to be the same color, and you don't need to understand the Torah. Many people don't understand Aramaic, and they pray in Aramaic, or you have Sefer Daniel in the Bible is in Aramaic. So, but the kavanah, how do you say kavanah? The
Intention.
more than in Judaism, kavanah is more than intention. It's, you know, the kavanah is the spirit. It was the same. I was in the synagogue and I felt like it was my synagogue. And from that moment on, there was no doubt that these people belonged in Israel. After you hear the stories about their dreams of the return to Zion, Shivat Zion in Hebrew, you have to do everything. Now, I was not alone, and my team of white people, we were not alone. We were working hand to hand, and you see it in the book, with the Olim, the Ethiopian Jews themselves. But I don't want to go to a long story now. Moments of danger?
Yeah, tell me something, a crazy story.
Yeah. We got stuck with the Jeep in moving sands, me and a guy from my team, and he was a former Navy SEAL, so he swam much better than me. And we had a small blue water strait to pass to the other side. Otherwise, we had to walk back to the village about 5-6 miles. So we chose to swim. So because he was a much better swimmer than me, and he had some stomach problems, so he remained behind, and I started swimming. And while I was swimming with a mask and
Flippers. Flippers?
Yeah, I saw something coming from the very deep gray color, and he was coming straight at me. So I understood. I turned back and I swam back. The guy was there still. He was laughing his stomach out. Said, Jesus walked in the water. You run on the So that was a very dangerous moment. Does nothing to do with
shark attacks. Yeah, the shark attacks were not mentioned in the book. You did operating behind enemy lines, though. You were both by Sudanese authorities and just like thieves, you were always encountering danger.
No.
What gave you the strength? Like seriously, why did you fight back when Menachem Begin or Sharon, whoever was telling you to shut down the operation? You went back to Israel and you fought. You said, I refuse to shut down the operation.
Yeah, that I refused an order.
Why did they want to shut down the operation, and why did you refuse the order?
We had an encounter with the Sudanese army. We were in the middle of an operation, about 180 Jews, about 32 Navy SEALs, and 10 Mossad people. All of us on one narrow piece of the beach on the Red Sea, and a unit of the Sudanese army came to us. So there was fighting that developed. We never wore firearms, only the hands, sometimes knives. But our intention was always to avoid fighting with the authorities, because you fight with the authorities, first of all, they are much more than us, and then you want the operation to continue. But there was some shooting, and from the ship that was waiting for the Navy SEALs, a report went back to Israel that there was been shooting, so after the incident ended without victims, we got a little bit, but nobody was hurt.
I just want to point out, he said there was just a little bit of fighting and some knives with the Sudanese soldiers, so it was not a big deal. Okay, of course.
Anyway, it's a long story. They arrested me and then they released me because we had a relationship with the military leaders of the area, Sudanese, the chief of the Navy. So I got a direct order from the chief of the Mossad, which is something that you cannot really disobey unless you find yourself, look for another job. But I felt that if I obeyed that order, it was the end of the operation, and there were still about 3,000 Jews in the camps. And if you shut down this operation, it will take you at least a year to get another cover, and it's a long story. So I consulted with my team. I said, look, we are under orders to leave. I will try to go to Israel and convince them to change the order, but if you stay here, you are rebels. So they said, okay, we are rebels, you go. And I told them in 24 hours, I'll give you an answer if you stay or you come. I went to Israel, I had a meeting with the chief of the Mossad, who I must say, one of his earlier jobs was chief of the paratroopers brigade. And I used to be also an officer in the paratroopers brigade, so there was some respect, like among thieves, the same thing about paratroopers. And I explained, and he listened. And when I finished, he called his assistant and he said, okay, you put into Danny's file a reprimand for disobeying an order and mention of honor for being right. And it's in his biography.
Yeah.
In his biography, when he speaks about the Mossad, this is one incident that he mentions. And, the most frightening moment, really, was when they arrested Faraday, who was my friend and my brother. One of the reasons the operation is called Operation Brothers is because of the relationship that we had. It started two foreigners, and we became brothers. And he was arrested, and I knew that if I let him go, it's the end of him, because the Sudanese, you cannot trust them to do the right thing. And maybe egoistically, without him, there was not much that I could do. So for both reasons, because I loved him and because I was thinking about the continuation, I went with him to prison, and there were some frightening moments there. First of all, we didn't know if we were going to be released at all. Headquarters, they didn't know, so they didn't know to look for us in prison.
How long were you in prison?
Not long, 11 days.
Oh,
10 sleepless nights.
Okay. 10 sleepless nights. That's really absolutely incredible. I know that everybody in this audience is amazed by the story. I need to read something from this book. When I read it last Shabbat. I was sitting and reading the book in my living room, and my wife looks over at me and says, why are you crying? I'm like, I can't believe, you got to read this. And I had everybody who's in my house read, I read it out loud to everybody in my home, and my kids, and everybody was shocked. I need to read something for everybody to hear, and I want Donnie and Sharon to tell me a little bit about their experience here. I want to read for you. This is describing the moments when the Ethiopian Jews were escaping through Sudan, going into the water to be brought to the ship that would bring them to Israel. The night of the pickup, 8-year-old Zuda Mulu could not sleep. His mother had told him that after dark, white people from Jerusalem were going to come and take him to the promised land. The family had left their village of Gudulo in Tigray a year earlier after rumors began to circulate the Jews from Jerusalem had come to Sudan to take the Ethiopian Jews back with them. Zude, his parents and 2 younger sisters and brother walked for 2 months through forests and desert before reaching the camp. They had been told they could be there for up to 3 years. Desperate to get her children to safety, Zude's mother managed to get him onto the committee's list. She told 2 other people on the list to take care of him and to pretend he was their son. Zude had never met them before. As the book continues, Zude says, I lost track of time, but after many hours we stopped at a place between 2 mountains. They, the Israelis, gave us food and cartons of juice to drink. I had never seen such a thing before. When I sipped it, I wondered why it tasted so sweet. Then I thought to myself, it must be water from Jerusalem. They put us in boats and we went out to sea. I saw a lot more boats like ours on the water, and the commanders signaling to one another. All our clothes were completely wet, and everyone was in shock. I remember going into the hold of the big ship, and they gave us juice and food. We were all dancing together and kissing the floor because we thought this was Jerusalem. Zude Mulu would grow up to become an Orthodox rabbi known as Sharon Shalom, an educator with a PhD in philosophy and a leading member of the Ethiopian Jewish community in Israel. 2 years after Zude arrived, Donnie had a son. Later in life, when Donnie's son got married, Rabbi Shalom performed the wedding ceremony. That says everything. Rabbi Shalom spoke a little bit about this last year when he was here. I want to hear it from your story. When your son was getting married, what were you thinking? Did you know you were going to? Tell me about the process. Did you think about the process? What's that? When your son was married, and Rav Shalom performed was the Misader Kiddushin.
There was not a dry eye.
Put your microphone.
There was not a dry eye, and I think his schedule is doing weddings filled up for the next year because all my friends, right? Right. So I'm having a commission for every wedding he performs now. No, I felt it was the most natural thing. By the way, my son is the one who came and asked me, we were thinking about a rabbi this, rabbi that. He said, but why not Rav Sharon? It was the right choice. What can I mean?
What was that experience like for you, Rav Shalom?
You can tell the story about Levaya of my mother. Oh. Tell it yourself. Okay, so when my mother passed away, in the cemetery, you say El Maleh Rachamim, the prayer when you're burying. And I have a part of my family, they are hard-nosed Haredim from Bnei Brak. It's one of my mother's sisters. So in the cemetery, there were a lot of Haredim, Haredim. And there were many friends of mine from the Ethiopian community and Rav Sharon. So I asked Rav Sharon. It began because I introduced him as a rabbi to my cousins and uncles. And they looked at him, that's a rabbi,
A Schwarze.
A Schwarze. Yeah, Schwarze. And so I asked him to do, and they were prepared to do it, but I asked him to do it. And really, it was very, very moving. And I said, after he finished the prayer, I said, now my mother is smiling from upstairs.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Roni, I want to ask you a question. Can you share with us your perspective? I know one of the things that you've really focused on is making it clear that the story of the Ethiopian Jews going to Israel is not a story primarily of Israelis coming and rescuing Jews from Ethiopia. But the Ethiopian Jews themselves were moser nefesh, were able to act heroically on their way to Israel. Tell us something about the heroism and the way that you are inspired by the Ethiopian Jewish community's drive to make Aliyah.
I think it's a story of partnership between the Ethiopian Jews and the Mossad and the Israeli government. But before that, if I have time, can I tell you a short story about Danny?
You may.
Because he's very modest.
Okay,
but you talked about
we love to hear stories.
Scary moment, so I can share a scary moment that I know. Think about it, to drive in the desert in Sudan in a truck full of people, Jewish people, in the darkest day that you ever saw. It really, really was dark. So they were driving, Danny and Ferede, I think, in the truck before those operations, before the sea operation. And with few, I think, with a lot of people in the truck, they were very crowded. And they couldn't, and they know that few hundred meters later, they're going to meet the soldier, the Sudanese soldier, that of course they cannot know that they are taking Ethiopian Jews to Israel. And in the middle of the driving, somebody tapped on Danny's leg and told him that there is a woman, pregnant woman in the truck, that they need to have the baby. Now, in the middle of Sudan, before the soldiers, the Sudanese soldiers will see them. So they didn't have a choice. They stopped the truck. They went down the valley and they labored their woman. She had the baby in the middle of the desert. And then you want to tell what did he do so nobody will hear the baby crying? So he took you can tell the story.
They knew that we were close to one of the military checkpoints in the desert at night. The sound travels very quickly. So the woman that gave birth, she didn't cry. You didn't hear her, and it was her first child, and it was done almost in total silence. It was incredible. I mean, the effort and the
incredible.
Yeah.
I want to say, Shalom.
And the kid name is Daniel.
How many? Are there a lot of Ethiopian children in Israel named Dani?
I didn't count them, but this guy, I followed his life from. His father wanted me to do the Brit Milah. And I had to explain that in the Mossad we don't...
That's not the training.
That's not something you learn.
There's a lot of training, but they don't train you to be a Moel. Very interesting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, listen, I could sit here for the next 2 hours just listening to your stories. There's value in all of us being together. We're going to be together with more panelists a little bit later in the morning. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be breaking up into smaller groups where we're going to be able to more intimately learn and participate in this morning's program. But before we go, Rav Shalom has asked for one more milah, which of course I'm going to say yes to. Rav Shalom.
Yes, please. I'm very important to me to tell you. You know, the story of Ethiopian Jewry, I can write from the Rachel, Kol Barama Nishma, Nehi B'chi Tamrurim, Rachel מבכה על בניה, מענה להנחם על בניה כי איננו. Why is twice? כי על בניה, twice. So, first is על בניה when they went out to the exile. And the other Abaneha is when they come back to Medinat Israel. And מענה להנחם על בניה כי איננו, because she sent someone, name is Yehoshua, and he returned Josh. Someone he sent with Abraham, and the other is Ethiopian, the other is Ashkenazi, Dan Kishen, Betishen, and the other is Yemenite, and the other is all the kind, and they say, oh my God, Rachel say, Me'ana lilachem al banea. I send one color, one same culture, and after 2,000 years, everybody come, and some change to be Ethiopian, and the others change to be Ashkenazi, Dankishen, and the others change to be Yemenis, Russian, Harasho, and Rachel say, Me'ana linachem al banea. I can recognize them, my children. Who are them? And I think this is our challenge today. When Mossad, Danny Limor, you are a hero. You are a hero, of course. And I want to share something with you. You know, sometime after we had arrived in Israel, we were invited to remain for the Olim and soldiers, Mossad and Shetet 13. The commandos tell us that they too began to cry when they first saw us in Sudan. Can you imagine that? A fighter, naval commando, Mossad, like you are very tough, but also you're very cute. But a tough guy, the last person you expect to be sentimental, embracing a strong child, you know, like me, brown child, and you starting to weep. And of course not, but we were two brothers who were once of one flesh, separated for 2,000 years, and who then embrace. And maybe one changed to be more white, Ashkenazi, and the other changed to be brown. I'm not black, brown. But at the bottom line, we are the same brothers. This is Operation Brothers. And to see that, we have to be very intelligent. And this is the story of Jewish people today, to recognize each other. At beginning, Rabbi told me to tell you that when Danny Limor was a great commander, okay, in Sudan, and he helped me to get Israel, as you mentioned, without parents. A few years ago, Danny called me, as you mentioned, he told me he had a request. You remember, in Sudan, I was your commander, and I helped you to get Israel. Now I want to close a circle with you. This time, you will be my commander. My son is getting married, and I want you to be our rabbi in chuppah ceremony, under the chuppah. All cry. And this is the language of heart. This is the story of Jewish people. After millennia of exile, we come back to Israel, and this is the Bible. This is the prophets. They promised to us, one day I will take you from all the world, and I bring you, and we are in Israel today. This is a miracle, Baruch Hashem. And let you please, you know, Naomi Shemer sang the song, and he say, good day, Rabbi Akiva, Naomi Shemer. Where are all the holy people? Where are the Maccabi? Rabbi Akiva answered him, all Israel is holy, and you are a Maccabi. Danny Limor, you are a Maccabi, and everybody is a Maccabi. Thank you very much.
That was incredible. Thank you all very much. Mivtza Achim, let's go to our sessions. אני צריך חיבוק. זה משהו. וואו. מדהים. מדהים. טוב.